Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Dear respected viewers, again we welcome you to a new episode. In this episode, Dr. Gharama relates the story about the two sons of Adam, Cain and Abel, and also he relates the story of Noah and the story of the Babylon Tower. We proceed now. We are now here. We are in the biblical chapter that is number 4 in the book of Genesis. So, in this biblical chapter number 4, the book of Genesis, we come to meet with the story of those two sons of Adam. One, his name was Cain, and he was a farmer. The other son, his name is Abel, and he was a shepherd. So in this biblical chapter, their story is mentioned, and also, by the way, it is mentioned also in the Holy Quran. It can be summed up as that those two sons of Adam, they gave an offer. So the Lord looked with favor on the one of the offer of that is to be exact, the offer given by Abel, and he did not look with favor on the offer offered by Cain. So this created a kind of grudge and animosity in the heart of Cain, to the extent that at the end of the story we will come to relate it, he killed his brother. So this is just an introduction about the story which has been stated in the 4th biblical chapter, book of Genesis. As for the stories itself, it goes as such. In the Holy Quran, this story has been mentioned, but without any names.
واتل عليهم نبأ ابني آدم بالحق إذ قربا قربانا فتقبل من أحدهما ولم يتقبل من الآخر قال لأقتلنك قال إنما يتقبل الله من المتقين.
And recite to them the story of Adam's two sons in truth, when they both offered a sacrifice to Allah, and it was accepted from one of them, but was not accepted from the other. Said the latter, I will surely kill you. Said the former, indeed, Allah only accepts from the righteous who fear Him.
لئن بسطت إلي يدك لتقتلني ما أنا بباسط يدي إليك لأقتلك إني أخاف الله رب العالمين.
If you should raise your hand against me to kill me, I shall not raise my hand against you to kill you. Indeed, I fear Allah, Lord of the worlds.
إني أريد أن تبوء بإثمي وإثمك فتكون من أصحاب النار وذلك جزاء الظالمين.
Indeed, I want you to obtain thereby my sin and your sin, so you will be among the companions of the fire, and that is the recompense of wrongdoers.
Simply because names doesn't mean anything. The important thing is the lesson, the message that we get from the story itself, rather than just to be distracted by names. So this farmer, Cain, and the shepherd Abel. So Cain was the killer, the person who committed the killing of his brother. This story mentioned in the Torah of those two sons of Adam. It talks about those two sons. One was a righteous, a devout son, and that is Abel. The other one, he was a wicked and corrupt person, his personality. And as we said in the beginning, they gave this offer, so it was accepted from Abel and rejected from Cain. What happened? This Cain, the son of Adam, Cain, he pretended friendliness to his brother, and he brought him to the field, and in the field he killed him. So, in brief, this is the background of the story. But Dr. Gharama concentrates on the tampering and on the alteration that took place within this story. So when he talked about these alterations and changes that happened, he mentioned the following. The text says, the Lord asked Cain, where is Abel? Where is your brother? Dr. Gharama, he pauses, and it's deserves, pausing here. He pauses to question and to wonder, how can God, who knows the unseen, the whole thing, how could he, ask and not knowing what happened or where is Abel, to the extent that he will ask his brother, where is Abel? And also the question of the rudeness and the ridicule. So as a response when given by Cain, when the Lord asked him, where is your brother, where is Abel? So he said, well, I don't know, I am not a keeper to my brother, or his keeper. Of course, this reflects, that this is a kind of ridicule and impolite response given by a human being, a creature, to the Lord. So the Lord bestowed the cares of the earth or the land upon Cain, and he was punished by being a restless wanderer. And also he said, I have been given a very harsh punishment, and even whoever who might could meet me might kill me. So the Lord, he said, no, I will punish 7 times the punishment of anyone who would kill you. And the Lord put a mark on Cain in order to deter any kind of killing that might happen to him. Here Dr. Gharama comments that how could it be that the godly, righteous person, that is Abel, wouldn't be protected, and there will be no mark on him to protect him, while the wicked, the killer, the criminal who committed this really great sin has been a mark has been put on him in order to be protected, so he won't be killed by anyone. Now, Dr. Gharama moves to talk about the Adam's line. Adam's line that was mentioned in the biblical chapter number 5 under the title Adam's line, or Adam's lineage, or Adam's descent, and so on. It is written a written account. You see, has mentioned, or it reads like this: that God has created Adam, the human being, in the likeness of him. God forbid, we as Muslim, couldn't say this. It is kind of heresy, because there is nothing like God. But anyhow, it is mentioned, so we seek God's forgiveness, for such a thing, because there is nothing like God. now let's go back to the text. The text goes on to say he was created, a male and female, and he was blessed, and the Lord called him Adam. He was 130 years when he was given, or God has bestowed on him a son by the name of Seth. This we can deduce that Adam, at the age of 130, he was blessed by God with the son, the name Seth. Then the biblical chapter relates to us that Adam, he lived for 930 years. So this means that if we take it from day 0 or day 1, so we can say that he died in the year 930. Dr. Gharam after that moves to talk about very important chart done in a very informative way by the French physician Maurice Bucaille, or Bucaille, and in it he wrote under the title Abraham lineage or line. He wrote a list. So this chart will be displayed to you, dear viewers, that talks about the age of human being from Adam to Abraham. Now we come back, we go back to the biblical chapter number 5, as we said, under the name Adam's line. This biblical chapters states this document that is the creation of Adam, and he was created and he was named Adam. It is repeated. Then we come to the chart that you will be displayed to you, but we can summarize that this chart by Maurice Bucaille starts with Adam, then his son Seth, continuing of this line of those descents who came until Abraham, and then there is a gap between Abraham will be number 20 after Adam. So there is a gap of 20 person between Adam and Abraham. This means that Adam is the 20th grandfather to Abraham. Dr. Rama now, he says, what do we learn from this chart? What messages do we gain from this chart? He summarized it in 4 comments. The first comment, we come to learn that the date of creation of human being, it must be more than 5,000 years. It must be, because even certain historical facts like the building of the pyramid, the Sphinx, I mean, even geologists and archaeologists, wouldn't accept that this date, that we date the beginning of humanity just back 5,000 years. It's impossible. It must have been more than this. In number 2, or in the second comment, Dr. Gharama talks about Noah, that he is the 10th grandfather to Abraham. And then he mentioned that what has been mentioned about the dates of the birth of the lineage of Adam, that he says he continued to say that we must pause for a while. If we take it for granted, or if we consider that Abraham was born on 1948, from the beginning of creation, this means that he was created 1948 after Adam, after the birth of Adam. This also implies that when Adam died, on 930, after 1,000 years, Abraham came to exist, and this is illogical. He came to exist 1,000 years after. This is illogical in the sense that it implies that Noah is the 10th grandfather to Abraham. So this implies also that Abraham was born while Noah was still living. Also, it implies something, beyond imagination and beyond belief, that when Noah died, Abraham was 58 years old. It can't be. This is impossible, because the timing between them, it must have been longer than what has been stated. Also, when Dr. Garama calculated it, he came to discover that what has been mentioned in the biblical chapter, that the difference between, or the gap between Adam and Noah was 126 years, which is really beyond belief and imagination. It must have been more than that. Then he comes to talk about, again, the 5th biblical chapter, and he talks about the descent of Adam, that this kind of dating for the birth, it can't be as stated. And also he come to mention that this lineage, or this chain of lineage of the ages, is incorrect. Now, Dr. Garama talks about the changes and the alteration that took place in the story of Noah. And he summarized it for you, dear viewers, and your participant in the course. He summarized it in 7 comments. The first comment, he talks about the grief and the sadness of the Lord, that the Lord was grieved and sad, which is something, beyond belief. We cannot attribute to the Lord certain habits that only takes or occurs to human beings, but not to the Lord. So, as a comment on this commentary, he talks that in the 6th biblical chapter, and in the 7th, and in the 8th, it talks about Noah with a lot of alteration. The 6th biblical chapter and the 5th, under the title "The Punishment for Humanity," it says that the Lord noticed that a human being is wicked, and his wickedness has been spreading in the earth. So he felt within his heart, that is the Lord, God forbid, that he felt kind of sorrow and grief because he created man. So he regretted that he created the man. And we know that this kind of to regret or to feel sad or grief only confined to us creatures, human beings, but far away from the Lord, glorified be He. He knows the unseen, and everything is correct. Then the biblical chapter continues to say, the Lord said, wipe the human being that I have created from the surface on the earth, with all the animals and all the crawling creatures and all the birds in the sky, because I feel sad that I created them. This is commentary number 1. Number 2, even there is a kind of alteration and tampering with the companions who accompanied Noah in the ark. Here it talks that he was accompanied by his wife, but we know that his wife was among the unbelievers. And also it's not mentioned here that it was not only Noah but few believers. Yes, true, there were few, but still there were some believers with him, and 3 of his sons. Yes, here the Quran agrees with what has been mentioned in the Torah, that yes, he was accompanied by 3 of his sons, while the 4th one, he was the one who received God's punishment when his father Noah asked him, "Oh son, ride with us, join us in the ark." So he refused and he drowned, and that was the end of him. Then we come to number 3, which is that the Lord, as they say, felt kind of regret that the people or the creature were drowned. He regretted this act, so in order to be reminded later on that they will not be drowned again, he created the rainbow as a kind of a reminder to him that so the flood will not occur again and they will not be destroyed. Of course, scientifically speaking, Dr. Gharama comments that in the beginning, when we talks about the rainbow, usually the rainbow appears after the rain is over. So it wouldn't fit. Number 2, this story implies that there were no rainbow before Noah, which is again against science. Also, he stated that simply this idea of rainbow can be also uttered or done in the laboratory through the prism. It is a certain glassy instrument through which all these different colors can be produced in the laboratory. And now we come to number 5. The comment number 5. It is related to the number of pairs who joined Noah on the ark. In one in one statement, they talk about that there were 1 pair of each species. Then, to our surprise, and the surprise of you, dear viewers, we are talking about 7 males and 7 females. That is, multiple of pairs. So whom to believe? Were they single pairs or 7 pairs? Anyhow, then we come to talk about the story of the gap that there were a complete kind of obedience during the time of Adam and during the time of the messengers of the right or the might or the messenger of the determination. Then suddenly in a short time there were corruption during the era of Noah. So it couldn't be, corruption takes stages. So it couldn't be that within this short gap the situation of human being will turn completely from godliness to complete corruption. Now we talk about the 7th point related to the flood itself. That it happened 300 years before the birth of Abraham. So when we study history, we notice that there were so many civilizations that happened or existed before and after. And we know from the story we have read that this flood destroyed everything. So while historical fact tells us that there existed so many civilizations before and after. So it must have been that this flood happened, yes, but at the early stages, early time in history, not as has been stated. Then Dr. Gharama raises this question. How could their scholars explain such discrepancies and contradictions? Well, he mentions that in order to answer and give an answer for such discrepancies and contradiction, they say this event continues or concentrates on the core of the event and on the skeleton of this event. As for the details, we leave them, we don't concentrate them, we don't discuss them, because those scribes, they vary from one person to another. So let's just concentrate on the core and on the main point in the event. Of course, this is unconvincing commentary, but this is what happened. Now we move to talk about the similarity and differences about Noah's story in the Quran and on the Torah. The similarity that this event, the event of the flood, the event of the ark, happened. So the event as a whole happened. But when it comes to the details, here where we notice many remarkable differences between what has been mentioned in the Quran and what has been mentioned in the Torah. Now we move to talk about the differences. It can be summarized in I think 6 points related to the alteration that took place within the different events of the story of Noah. Dr. Rahman talks about the first point, that is, when we talk about the book of Genesis and we talk about the time that happened, that it must have been longer than has been mentioned, because we talk about the period during Adam, when the people, they were on the right path, and then we were told that during the generation of Noah, things had changed and corruption spread, and there were corruption everywhere. So it couldn't be that this short period, during which this transformation, this really radical and noticeable transformation will take place during such short time between the time of Adam and the time of Noah. So in brief, there must have been more time or longer time between these two eras. The second point, Dr. Gharama comes to talk about the flood itself. So he talks that if it happened, if we come to talk or to mention, to state that it happened during the 21st or 22nd century, this cannot be. It cannot be because the shortness of time and the events that took place. Then on the third point, talks about this idea of grievousness that happened to the Lord, that the Lord was in grievousness and in sorrow that he created human being. This is as the Torah states. How could we imagine that God will grieve and will feel sorry? This happened to a human being because maybe they judged something and they discovered that their judgment was wrong, so they will feel grief or sorrow. But in the case of God, who knows the unseen, it cannot be. And the fourth point, we are told that God, the Lord, regretted that he caused a human being to drown through this flood. And as we know, regret and sorrow does not suit the mighty God who knows everything, and it cannot happen except to the ordinary creatures like us when it comes to feeling of regret, feeling of sorrow, and so on. And we should not read such thing, in a book that's supposed to be a revelation, because how can the Lord talks about himself with such human characteristics like regret and sorrow? Now we come to the fifth point, and that is related to the rainbow. In the book of Genesis, that God made this rainbow as a kind or a sign of covenant that he made between him and human being, reminding them that he will never get them to drown again. So this is a kind of covenant, a sign, an emblem, or a motto of covenant between God and human being, that God will not cause them again to pass through this kind of drowning through the flood. While we know, and any physicist, he knows that this is a natural phenomenon, and it's been known long time ago. While if someone believes on what is being related, this means that the rainbow just is taking place after Noah, while any physicist can prove that it is a natural phenomenon known even before Noah. And also it can be also experimented in the laboratory through the prism, the use of prism. Now we come to the sixth point. That is the story mentioned in the Torah about those who were saved in the ark, talking about Noah himself and 3 of his sons and his wife. While in the Holy Quran we are told that his wife was not saved, she was drowned because she was among those unbelievers. As for his 3 sons, yes, they were with him and they were saved. Not only them, but also a group of believers who were with him in the ark. As for the 4th son, and it is been clearly stated in the Holy Quran that Noah advised him to join the ark, but he refused, and he was among those who were drowned. Now Dr. Karama talks about the story of the 3 sons of Noah, that is Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So we are talking about Japheth, Ham, and Shem. He comes to talk that Noah had those 3 sons, and they were saved with him in the ark. And when he talks about Ham, he is the father of the Canaanites, that is the Palestinians. And when he talks about those 3 sons, that Noah, worked on the kind of farming, and he implanted grapes or vines. And one time he drank, he drank from these, grapes and vines, and he got drunk and was naked. So what happened? This really, we should pause for a while. Dr. Karama poses to say, how can a prophet who spent 950 years advising his people, warning his people, trying to motivate them and to try to, to get them to be righteous, to be devout. How can such a mighty, great, devout prophet get involved in drinking, and not only that, but also, he will get rid of his clothes and appear naked. This cannot be. So the story continues that two of his sons, when they saw their father drunk and naked, they managed to bring a piece of cloth. In order not to see his private parts, they just walked backward, and then they covered him, and they covered his private parts. So when Noah woke up, this is what's being related in the Torah. When he woke up and he came back to his sense and he is not drunk anymore, he was told about what happened. So he uttered a curse on Canaan. So Dr. Garama is questioning, what has Canaan to do with the whole event? But here there is something that should be commented on, that since the Palestinians are from the lineage of Canaan, so surely they will pick on this thing and try to dramatize it in order to fulfill their hope and to fulfill their intent. So it reads that let Canaan be cursed. We know that Ham had 4 sons, and when we talk about Ham, we talk about Cush, where the Sudanese descended. We talk about Masraim, where the Egyptian descended. We talk about Fort, where the Libyans and the surrounding people there descended. And then we talk about Canaan, where the Palestinians, descended. And here we should take a message that the concentration and the curse upon Canaan that has nothing to do with what happened, this idea of getting drunk and he was naked and his 2 sons covered him, he has nothing to do with it. But this shows you that those scribes of the book of the Old Testament, they had certain messages and certain points that they want to put focus on with a certain aim within their heart. So we come to the conclusion that they would use certain events or even create and make up certain events in order to get these events and to give it a kind of religiosity in order to show their characteristics of being the chosen people, and also to shed some light on the Palestinians whom they consider to be their enemies, and also to insert these things that is not related to how righteous the person or how unrighteous he is. This has nothing to do with it. The important thing is the lineage, the race that matters. But as the obedience or disobedience to God, they don't have any consideration for such things. We come to another even worse story, the story of Lut and his 2 daughters. The story goes as such, that one time Lut and his 2 daughters, they were in a cave, and then they managed to get their father by giving him wine. They managed to get him drunk, and then he committed, God forbids, but this is what has been related, he committed an adultery. And with whom? With his 2 daughters. The first one, or the eldest one, in the first night, and the second one in the second night. How can a prophet, and we know that God, when he appoints someone as a prophet, he chooses the best people. How can a prophet dare to commit this incest? Anyhow, so they came and they became pregnant, and then they gave birth to 2 sons. Here Dr. Garama concentrate on the purpose, the far purpose of such story, that such invented story to a great righteous prophet like Lut. Those two sons who were born, one of them, the lineage of one of them, it is related to the people from the north of Jordan. The lineage of the second son from the other daughter is related to people, the Jordanian, who are living in the south. So as to say that, and sorry to say it, but this is, the implication that they want to pass, that those Jordanian whether they're from the north or the south, are illegitimate sons. Far from it, but this is what has been, related. We come now to talk about the Babylon Tower. On the 11th biblical chapter, book of Genesis, we come to know about the bridge of the Babylon Tower, rather. So that it was known, God came to know, as if he doesn't know everything. God, the Lord, came to know that the people in Iraq, in a city called Babylon, they are building a high tower. This tower consists of so many stories. So he wanted to confirm this. So he said, let me go down and make sure that this is happening. So, as if he doesn't know the unseen, he came down and he found that, yes, that they were busy building this tower. So, as a kind of punishment, he caused them to faint for some times, and then during this phase, we were told that they used to speak a single language, so there is a kind of coordination among them. But after God came down and he found that this is true, so to speak, as they mentioned, he caused them to faint, and during this faint, he multiplied their tongues, their languages, to the extent that no one of them could understand the other. So they woke up while they couldn't communicate with each other. And Dr. Gharama related this terminology, the name of Babylon, it is related to the variety in their tongues. The variety, the term itself related, or the name Babylon is related to the variety that God caused them to have as a kind of punishment for them. While in reality we know that Babylon is related to the Bab, that is door in Hebrew and in Arabic, and Il is God. So it is the gate of God, so to speak. This is the terminology of Babylon. Dear respected viewers, with this we conclude. Looking forward to seeing you on future episodes. Until then, we leave you in the care of God. Assalamu alaikum.
أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام